The story of modern Mexico begins not with a king or a general, but with a priest, Miguel Hidalgo y Costilla. For 3 centuries, New Spain was ruled by the Spanish Empire, its people oppressed and its wealth shipped overseas. On September 16, 1810, Hidalgo rang the church bell in Dolores, calling not for prayer, but for rebellion, the Grito de Dolores. With a banner of the Virgin of Guadalupe, he rallied thousands to fight for freedom. Though his early victories were short-lived and he was executed, the movement he sparked endured. Leaders like José María Morelos carried the torch, envisioning a nation built on equality and sovereignty. After years of brutal conflict, an unlikely alliance between Agustín de Iturbide and Vicente Guerrero produced the Plan of Iguala, promising religion, independence, and union. United, their army of the 3 guarantees entered Mexico City on September 27, 1821. Spanish rule ended and Mexico emerged as an independent nation. The struggle for freedom became the foundation of Mexican identity. The dream of self-determination once ignited could not be extinguished. Mexico was now free to chart its own course. The birth of the nation was hard-won, but it set the stage for everything to come. The journey of Mexico had only just begun. Independence brought a new dilemma. What kind of government should Mexico have? Many elites, led by Agustín de Iturbide, feared chaos and favored a monarchy. In 1822, Iturbide was crowned Emperor Agustín I, hoping to bring stability. The empire stretched from Oregon to Panama, but its foundation was weak. Political rivalries resurfaced, the economy was in ruins, and Iturbide dissolved Congress to rule by decree. Disillusioned, Republicans like Antonio López de Santa Anna rebelled, issuing the Plan of Casamata. Facing revolt, Iturbide abdicated in 1823 and went into exile. The monarchy experiment collapsed in less than a year. Mexico learned that its future would not be decided by a single ruler. The nation turned to the difficult work of building a republic. The path ahead would be turbulent, but the dream of self-government endured. Mexico was ready to try a new path. Mexico's new federal republic, inspired by the US, promised rights and representation, but reality was far messier. Conservatives wanted centralized power. Liberals pushed for state autonomy and curbing the church and military. Political chaos reigned, presidents fell, coups erupted, and strongmen like Santa Anna dominated. Economic recovery stalled, and instability left Mexico vulnerable. American settlers in Texas rebelled, leading to the loss of Texas after Santa Anna's defeat at San Jacinto. The US annexed Texas in 1845, sparking the Mexican-American War. Outmatched, Mexico lost the war, and with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, surrendered nearly half its territory. The nation was left humiliated and diminished. Decades of instability had cost Mexico dearly. The struggle to define the nation's identity and future continued. The wounds of lost land and pride would shape Mexico for generations. The republic survived, but at a steep price. The lessons of this era would not be forgotten. Mexico's resilience would soon be tested again. Losing half its land forced Mexico to confront its divisions. Liberals led by Benito Juárez sought to modernize the nation, curbing the church and military through La Reforma. Conservatives resisted, plunging Mexico into the brutal reform war. Juárez's victory left the country bankrupt, prompting a suspension of foreign debt payments. France invaded, installing Maximilian of Habsburg as emperor with conservative support. Despite good intentions, Maximilian was seen as a foreign puppet. Juárez's forces waged guerrilla war until US pressure forced France to withdraw. Maximilian was captured and executed in 1867. Juárez returned in triumph, restoring the republic. The struggle cemented the ideals of sovereignty and reform. Mexico had repelled foreign rule and reaffirmed its identity. The republic, though battered, endured. After Juárez, Porfirio Díaz seized power in 1876, ruling for over 3 decades, the Porfiriado. Díaz imposed order through force, centralizing power and suppressing dissent. Elections were a sham, opposition was silenced. Economic modernization followed. Railways, mines, and foreign investment transformed Mexico. The elite prospered, but peasants lost land and workers toiled in harsh conditions. The gap between rich and poor widened dramatically. Beneath the surface, social tension simmered. Díaz's regime brought stability and growth, but at a steep human cost. The majority endured poverty and injustice. The peace of the Porfiriato was fragile, masking deep unrest. The seeds of revolution were sown in these years. Diaz's long rule would end in upheaval. The call for change was growing louder. Mexico stood on the brink of transformation. By 1910, Diaz's grip seemed unbreakable, until he welcomed an election challenger, Francisco Madero. Madero's call for democracy inspired a national uprising after Diaz rigged the vote and jailed him. The Mexican Revolution erupted, uniting peasants, workers, and rebels like Pancho Villa and Emiliano Zapata. Diaz was ousted, but Madero's moderate reforms disappointed radicals. Betrayed and murdered in a coup by Victoriano Huerta, Madero's death plunged Mexico into deeper conflict. Revolutionary leaders, Villa, Zapata, and Carranza, joined forces to topple Huerta. Civil war raged, costing over 1 million lives. After Huerta's fall, revolutionaries turned on each other, each with a different vision for Mexico. Carranza ultimately prevailed, paving the way for a new constitution. The revolution was brutal, but it transformed the nation. The fight for land, liberty, and justice would shape Mexico's future. The old order was gone, a new Mexico was emerging. The ideals of the revolution would soon be enshrined in law. The 1917 Constitution enshrined land reform, labor rights, and secular education. Revolutionary ideals made law. Yet stability was elusive. Violence and assassinations persisted through the 1920s. In 1929, the PRI was founded, uniting revolutionary factions and establishing one-party rule for 71 years. The PRI maintained power through patronage, co-optation, and repression, controlling every aspect of political life. This system brought political stability and fueled the Mexican miracle. Decades of economic growth and urbanization. A strong middle class emerged, and Mexico became a model for Latin America. But corruption and authoritarianism festered beneath the surface. Dissent was crushed, most infamously in the 1968 Tlatelolco massacre. The illusion of democracy masked deep flaws. The PRI's grip seemed unbreakable, but cracks were appearing. The promise of the revolution was both realized and betrayed. Mexico's stability came at a cost. Change was on the horizon. The Mexican miracle ended in the 1980s with a crushing debt crisis and economic collapse. Austerity and privatization followed, while the 1985 earthquake exposed government corruption and spurred grassroots activism. Calls for democracy grew louder after the disputed 1988 election, widely seen as fraudulent. The PRI responded with reforms and, under President Salinas, signed NAFTA to modernize the economy. On NAFTA's launch day, the Zapatista uprising in Chiapas highlighted deep inequalities. Political reforms in the 1990s made elections fairer. In 2000, Vicente Fox of the PAN won the presidency, ending 71 years of PRI rule. Mexico had achieved a peaceful democratic transition. But new challenges loomed, most notably the rise of violent drug cartels. The promise of democracy was real, but fragile. Mexico entered the 21st century at a crossroads. Democracy brought new challenges, most notably the war against drug cartels, which has claimed countless lives. Corruption remains deeply entrenched, undermining trust and progress. Economic inequality persists, especially in rural and indigenous communities. Yet hope endures. Women now hold half the seats in Congress, and in 2024, Claudia Sheinbaum became Mexico's first female president. This marks a profound social transformation. As of August 30th, 2025, Mexico stands resilient, rich in culture, dynamic in economy, and determined to overcome adversity. The journey from the Grito de Dolores to today has been long and arduous. The challenges of violence, corruption, and inequality remain. But the spirit and creativity of the Mexican people are its greatest assets. Mexico continues to forge its own path in the modern world.